Hey, Anton.
Yeah, Margaret?
You know what people don't talk about enough?
What?
The parallels to episode 1. Welcome to People Don't Talk About Young Royals. I'm Margaret. My pronouns are they, them.
And I'm Anton. My pronouns are he, they.
And we're people here to discuss the show our friends are sick of hearing us talk about.
If your friends sent you this podcast of a desperate attempt to get you watch Young Royals, take this as a sign.
Go watch Young Royals, then come back to this podcast.
Margaret, what are we talking about today?
Today we'll be discussing the cinematography of Season 1, Episode 4.
Woohoo! In this discussion, we won't be summarizing the plot of the episode because we already did that. Can you tell I'm putting in a happy voice because this is going to be a depressing episode? Mm-hmm. If you need or want a refresher, head back 2 episodes in our feed to our most recent This Week in Hillerska for a full breakdown. This episode's discussion will likely be all over the place, so strap in. You have been warned.
Okay, Anton and I did talk about putting an extra disclaimer here.
Yeah. This is the first... Yeah. Oh, no, you go.
This is the first time we're not recording both Art of Those at the same time, so we don't know what we're going to talk about next week.
Yeah, so we're not going to make our usual cute little, we're going to talk about this next week, like, that's, like, these episodes are supposed to be fun, and nothing about this episode is going to be fun. I'm so sorry to break it to you if you didn't already realize from how I'm artificially making my voice sound like this. And also, I just almost started crying. Oh my god.
Are you okay?
Yeah, I don't think I didn't emotionally prepare myself for this episode in the direction of making myself less vulnerable to crying on mic. Like, so basically for a multitude of reasons, but I think first and foremost for our own mental health, we need to only record this episode today.
Yeah.
For both of us, I think.
Yeah.
But with that, so that we don't have to, we might just be randomly breezy at points, at places where we would usually maybe stop and pause and like contemplate, because this is not supposed to be the episode where we discuss things and think about things deeply. It's supposed to be us applauding the art. And we're going to do that because we want to pay tribute to these wonderful artists, but they also actively cause us distress and pain for fun. So in this episode specifically, so as much as we want to applaud them, I also want to kind of punch them in the face. So
yeah,
this is such a wild way to start an episode, but like truly unhinged. But, Margaret, do you want to, since your cold open's kind of broad, do you want to start there and see where we end up?
I'd love to start there, especially because it starts at 0-0. So
yeah, there we go.
The shot opens and we see Wilhelm just like walking up the aisle at the church, and it's completely dark around him.
Yeah.
Now I want you to think about a moment where we maybe saw Wilhelm in a hallway alone, where it was completely bright around him.
Fuck you! Fuck you, Rashta, and you, Margaret, for pointing it out. I didn't see that.
Except this time, it's completely dark. Because
being
left permanently by your brother is much emotionally darker than being left at boarding school.
Like, one, he was just like being left alone in a hallway. This time, I'd never really fully appreciated, I think, until today, how much he's just walking in a fucking void.
Yeah. He's now been left alone on Earth instead of in school.
In writing like a really, really intense scene where someone was like really like caught off guard by something, the other day I wrote out that they felt the floor fall underneath, fall out from under them, and then they were in a void, like the vacuum of space, struggling to take in air.
Yeah.
And like it's just like it's not fully the feeling that I think this evokes. Like this is something slightly different, but like it just makes is what I'm thinking of. Yeah. For me, for the funeral, I was brought back to thinking of what you called out last episode, Margaret, which is that car crash feeling of like I mean, so like how many crashes are there on the internet that also have a slow-mo camera added to them?
Yeah.
So I literally wrote, let's watch tragedy in slow motion. Why don't we? Like,
yeah.
Like everything moves so slow. Like not looking too far ahead, but like I was watching episode 5 reaction today too. So it's like I know if like I was realizing like, this episode and next episode just like move so fucking slowly.
It's a complete opposite. Yeah, so much happens, but it's a complete opposite too. Like if we remember the pilot being like so much is happening and it's moving so quickly. Now so much is happening, but each time we see like people in the world, it's all moving very slowly.
Yeah, and I think it's in a way that barring like the exceptions to this rule, the new rule of the show is we're gonna make you sit in it.
Yeah.
And everything is going to take 30 seconds longer, at least, than you want it to. Because we're not going to make this comfortable for you.
Right. And I want to clarify that this is not us saying that the show is slow now.
No. Pacing-wise, it's still as fast as ever.
Correct.
It's just that with it, the feel of the show is like it has been...
It makes us hang in these emotions for slightly longer than...
It feels...
what is like, maybe comfortable.
I think there's something about grief, although I feel like I just have not really experienced grief on the level that any of these characters have, honestly.
Yeah.
Like, there's something about it that makes you sort of feel trapped in amber a little bit.
Yeah, absolutely.
Of like, you are frozen in that moment where you found that out.
Yeah.
And it's like, there's a reason why grief like emotionally stunts people, because you're you're kind of just stuck until you can somehow process this grief out of you. And even when you maybe finally do that, some part of it is always with you and the scar is left behind. So it's
Correct.
like
yeah,
what
I'm
what are
thinking
you gonna do?
of this film. I cannot for the life of me remember the name right now, but at the end of the movie, spoilers for a movie I can't even remember the title of, the villain takes this like what's effectively a drug in the movie, and it causes time to dilate, and then she's pushed out of like a skyscraper window, and so for her that fall feels like it takes forever, but in reality it's like a few seconds. But that's sort of like what grief is. It dilates time in a way that is hard to like understand.
No, definitely. Like, it's just like, I mean, this is a highly psychological show that is closely tied with especially Wilhelm's, because Wilhelm is like our sort of unwilling guide through this world.
Yeah.
In a lot of ways, like especially early on, and especially like in this first season, like he is the one who most of the time we even get close to his face.
Right.
In these first few episodes. Like, and like really this episode, I would like, other than when he's being seen from Villa's perspective, this I think feel like our first episode with that we really get close to Simon's face too.
I'd agree with that.
If memory serves, like.
Yeah, I know, I would agree with that. And I think that that's why, at least for me, part of the, jarring isn't the right word, but part of that football scene where Simon runs up to Wilhelm and does get right in his face and we see him very up close, that's like a very stark contrast to any other A, emotion, but B, like framing that we've ever seen from Simon.
Because it's like in this funeral, in the memorial scene, we get these cutaways to Simon's emotional state, and like because we want to be only on his like private emotions, we don't really see anyone else in that frame. This is, I feel like, the first time in a while where I was planning on doing this episode chronological, but that's impossible now. We're just going vibes, baby. Yeah. Just strap in, guys. We mean it this time. Like we get these private feelings of Simon's, because in all prior episodes, Simon is only really alone when he's only dealing with like his stuff only. Like there's very few cutaways when like Simon and Wille are not actively interacting to Simon's face.
Right.
Like it's usually only been in these like really close moments that we've even got any sort of insight into how Simon is feeling about Wille in the moment, like while he's watching Wille. But it's like, in a lot of ways, this is the first episode that it feels like they are for the most part, taking up equal parts in their love story. And that's not to say that like Simon wasn't an active participant in it, but I'm saying that like in what the camera has chosen to focus on, the camera has kind of realized that in order to tell the completeness of this story, you need to start incorporating Simon too.
Right.
In more than they have. But before we lose the funeral too much, I need to shout out unless you have anything else about the funeral, like the title card change. Yeah. Like it's so important to me that I literally shouted it out in this week Hillerska, which I like never really break out of this week Hillerska scripting because I'm so worried about time. But like the title card is empty the words of the title card are empty because Wille is empty. And the life before him is coming into focus just as the title card is like constructing itself on screen. Because he's trying to build back, but he's building back less of a person than he was before.
Yeah.
At least in his own mind.
Yeah. I also tied in the parallels that I talked about at the beginning. Because when we saw him after his brother left in the pilot, we saw somebody who was lost, but now we see somebody who is broken.
Yeah. Yeah. Like, and it just keeps they just keep hammering it home. Like I mean, say this about the show. No one from the moment it happens who watches the show can ever forget that Eric is dead.
Correct.
They never let you forget.
No.
Down to like the first dinner that they have as the royal family has as a family with an empty place setting where Eric would have sat next to his father and across from his mother. Like, it only makes sense, but it's so rude. Like, it only makes sense. Like, of course, like, the staff would not be so callous and thoughtless or careless to, like put a place setting out for someone who is not going to be there. But, like, just the fact that the palace has already adjusted to this new normal. As these royals are just, like, needing to keep going. But in that, like, have not let themselves process their grief for, like, more than a second.
Yeah.
And, like, in response to them just trying to move on, the palace is like, okay, we're just gonna basically pretend like Eric never existed. Like, sure, there is a fourth chair there, but, like, I mean, square chairs always, like, square tables always have, like, 4 chairs.
Yeah.
But I think just the way that, like, it only makes sense from, like, shot purposes, but, like, it's a good, like, bit of, like, realism, I think. Also, like, Duke Ludwig is on the outside, whereas, like, I feel like usually if you're going to leave a chair open that was, like, always meant to be open, it's the one like closer, that the one that's not next to the wall.
Yeah.
It's like it's a little thing, but it's just like everything is set up to make you, if you're paying attention, just notice that obvious absence.
Right. Yeah, for sure.
This is gonna be hard to talk about, but kind of continuing in chronological order. Trigger warning: body dysmorphia. The way that August's whole mental journey while working out is so clear. Like, this is a bit of art of the choice, which is probably going to bring it up there. But like, Malta's acting would mean nothing without the impeccable cinematography and direction.
Yeah.
Because it's like art of the choice. Usually we talk about like line delivery, because that's really like, I mean, actors have so much control over, like, have a lot of control, especially on the show, of like what is being put on screen, because they have a lot of control over what they do. But like, it wouldn't hit as hard if we didn't know, if we weren't so up close on August's face, if we weren't like cutting away to his body like we do. Like, it just is so effective. Yeah. And it like, some reactors are like, it happens, it goes by so fast for them to not notice it. But like, if you have any experience with body dysmorphia, or like are clued into that sort of thing in like a in any way, like, most people, you can't pass it by, because it like makes you dwell in it a little bit before it just moves on.
Yeah, for sure.
Like, it's sort of in the background, but I mean, it basically is for like most of the show. But like, in this like few moments, like, it's the only thing that's happening.
Right.
And then I guess continuing yeah, no, you go.
I do want to bring something up that I think is important, and I wasn't sure if it was art of the frame or art of the choice, because it's not an acting choice, but it is like a choice of something that they chose to put in the show. So at 2 minutes, that's when we see the whole Hillerska, Simon, like the whole, I mean, what's effectively the community that this school is in.
No, yeah, they've all really come together to mourn.
Yeah, and I think that there's a world in which the show is able to show more of Wilhelm's mourning and loss and struggle, but in showing how it's been televised and how everybody is a spectator in it, it's really showing that, like, yes, his loss does matter, but it's being valued below the loss that like the whole country feels. Yeah,
even in the structure of how the show is being told to us, he is not an active participant in his own grief.
Correct.
Because he doesn't feel like one. Like, he is our guide through this show, but again, he's our unwilling guide, because part of, I mean, this is not really a radical hot take, but I think going forward is going to which is going to more and more have to color the way we see the show, because I think I never want to lose too much track of it. Like, yes, like, we are the camera, the way the first, like, we are the frame is first titled, but like, why are we the camera? Because Wilhelm's public life is invasive.
Right.
We are an invasive presence in this world, and we are getting unprecedented access to these elite people and their lives. And only Wille seems to really be aware that we're there. But we are still, the camera is really still, for the most part, behaving. Is like, especially when when it's a public or like semi-public, like when there's like a scene with a lot of people. Like, most of the way the show is structured in this, at least up to this point, like, is really like, what is the world doing? And Wille just has to kind of respond to the world. Right. Like, he does not feel, he's never felt like an active participant in pretty much anything. Like, even his relationship with Simon kind of just happened to him. Like, his first real active choice is to go off script at the memorial and tell Simon to delete their texts. Yep. I mean, and then before that, it was let's forget about that. But again, that was still kind of that was still in response to to Simon kissing him. And granted, he like did kiss him back. That's an active choice, but it's like that in a lot of ways that was still kind of happening to him. But like with the moment when, like as I said last episode, like he really like redirects the conversation, or like redirects the entire show with his actions. The first time he does that is with that speech at the memorial.
Yeah, I agree.
And like seeing what Wille does with his first ever active choice in the show, really. Like, basically since the fight that got him to send to Hillerska in the first place.
Mm-hmm.
And, like, okay. I mean, I'm already thinking of like so many active choices. So, like, don't, like, the most active choice he's made so far. I'll put it that way.
Yeah.
Because he's made decisions. And he's not just, like, a robot. But, like, that's, like, but it's making a decision this big and this pivotal with this many consequences is new to him. Because he's never had this much responsibility before.
Right.
And, like, I think he's handling it the best he reasonably could.
Yeah, I'd agree.
Which is part of why, spoilers, despite saying last episode that I kind of hated Wilhelm part of this episode, we are still standing him the cycle. Do not worry. In case anybody was. But to kind of just continue chronologically, finally moving past the memorial, and then past the Queen calling August. Nils and Vincent and August casually leaving Nils out in the cold.
Yeah.
And then that glance that Nils does, like along with the camera, to notice their first years watching him be humiliated.
Mm-hmm.
And then just that little like scoff, like it's like another little reminder of what Hillerska really is like, in case you forgot.
Yeah.
Like, we're introducing in this episode that even among the people who we all notice having the same sunglasses in the first episode, who like turned as one, really act like this is like a triumvirate. This is a unit, a trio.
Mm-hmm.
One of them is still the odd person out. And he happens to be the only person of color.
Yes.
Funny that.
Except not at all.
Exactly. I mean, and jumping ahead to later, because I don't like I have a note about it really. We learn that it's because in this instance, with again like Wilhelm is separate from everybody, even at Hillerska, by class and status. But we learn that there's further stratification, as Nils is not noble born.
Right.
His
family is like called New Rich.
No, yeah, New Riche is the French. It's like it's often like just like it's French, but it's like used in a lot of different languages to be like it's the terms like old money, new money.
Yeah, it's not like long-standing generational wealth.
Yeah, I would imagine, based on information we gain later in the run of the show, that Nils's parents, this one or both of Nils's parents are self-made, like probably firm believer in capitalism, because it has gotten his family where they are, and has gotten them to Hillerska with these titled nobles who have been rich for centuries. Whose families have been rich for centuries. They're not vampires.
That would be a twist.
With August, I see it.
True.
Anyways, yeah, I just wanted to shout out that moment of like learning that Nils is an odd person out, and like separating the trio for the first time in a way that I think often goes unnoticed. Like when you're taking the episode as a whole.
Yeah. I want to bring up another parallel. When Wilhelm is being driven to school.
Yeah.
It very much parallels when his brother drove him up. But this time he's in black car in the back seat instead of, what color is his brother's car? Like green?
Yeah.
In the front seat?
Yeah.
Driving slow instead of fast.
Yeah, I mean, and the last time we saw him, he was at least like with Fatima on his way to the palace, being given his mea culpa speech that he's about to deliver to the nation. So it's the same framing as the last time he was in trouble.
Yep.
But this time he is alone and being sent back to a familiar environment.
Right, yeah, the place he's been for, a couple months maybe.
Maybe.
Instead of home.
Yeah. I just realized I also totally misspoke. We are not done with the memorial scene because we haven't even gotten there chronologically yet. But I just want to say the whole memorial is masterful. Like, what do I even have to say about it? Like, what I have to say is something that came to mind while watching, which is the spectacle of royal grief.
Yeah. The
amount of eyes on him, on that slow... This is what I'm talking about with the show being slow now, is this just slow walk. Like, things keep happening, but it's still just like, it takes him forever to get through the entire student body.
Yeah.
And he's a spectacle. But do you have something to say about Remember? Because I kind of want it to be solely an art of the choice thing.
I don't have anything to say about Remember.
Okay. I mean, okay, it is a directorial choice to choose that song.
Yes.
But I think we talked about it enough start of last episode.
Yeah, and I think what's more important than it being chosen was its delivery.
Exactly. So it's not, the framing is nothing special. We're not going to say it's not good. It's just mostly shot, reverse shot.
I do realize that I wanted to talk about something.
Well, good.
So at 8:10, when he's walking into the memorial room, he passes through that hallway first.
Yeah.
That hallway's lighting is very warm. It's the same warmth that we've always associated with Simon scenes, but Simon's not in this one. It's Wilhelm, Felice, August is also there. And then we change into the memorial. So he's in the warm area, warm lighting, when he's with people he's familiar with. He's getting hugs, which are personable, that kind of thing. And then he transitions into the memorial room where he's a spectacle again, like you were saying. And
there are strangers' eyes on him.
Yeah.
Really, for the first time.
He is in this environment that's very clinical lighting. It's blue, it's harsh. Yeah. It's kind of lit like a hospital. Like it's that kind of lighting again. So he transitions into that.
No. That's a great thing to shout out. And yeah, but like we were saying, Remember is really art of the choice because it's really their faces that make Remember so painful. I mean, the fact that we always see Wilhelm and August, but I never look at August during Remember.
Yeah. I don't even know what Malta's doing with his face.
He's kind of just trying to keep it together. Like, his face really doesn't move.
Gotcha.
And he doesn't actually even show much in the eyes. Like, he's kind of just dead. Like, it's that way that, like, Wilhelm and August both try to hold it together, but they do it in very different ways. And August, I think, does it more effectively.
Yeah.
But with August, it feels like a truly physical thing. Like, every part of his body is tense to keep the emotion trapped inside. But that's another out of the choice thing. But that was tangent. Gay Watch shout out. I'm gonna be doing 2 of those this episode. The first time I ever showed Margaret one of my favorite reaction channel's videos about M Royals was to show her reaction to this episode and her analysis of the shot of Villa first standing before the student body preparing to give his speech, where he's so small in the frame because how could he feel big in this moment? Yeah. Like, that's powerful storytelling through just visuals.
It really is.
That's the power of cinematography, power of like a visual medium like television. Also, that same frame, August is on the left and Eric's framed photo is on the right. And I'm like, fuck me, I just noticed that. So, and then the blocking, which is to say the movement of the actors based on the direction they've been given of a woman's breakup, as if they were ever even together. Like a breakup is in quotes in my notes. This is honestly either worse than ghosting or only like one level up. Like it's in person, but I cannot tell if that's better or worse.
I think it's better.
Yeah. It's more personal, but that's, again, also better and worse.
Yeah.
But I want to shout out, I'm shouting out the blocking because it is literally telegraphed what is going to happen in just the placement of Evan and Omar's bodies on the screen.
Mm-hmm.
Like, you keep talking about it, but like, I want to bring it up this time. Like, it's sometimes hard to like tell where directing ends and acting choices begin, but like Wilhelm facing forward and Simon turned towards him and them not actually looking at each other feels like firmly a directorial choice.
Yeah.
Possibly all the way down to being a Lisa choice.
Mm-hmm.
in the script. And then just kind of go through a few little things that the little missed opportunity of the exchange of glances between Simon and Ayub on the bus, where like Simon looks over at Ayub but then looks away just before Ayub can see Simon looking at him. Like it's little things like that. You're just like, it happens so quickly, but it says so much. And it's like, I am usually like, as a writer, I am really dialogue heavy in my own like understanding of stories and like my own like things I really appreciate in stories. Like I focus on dialogue way more, but like this is a show where I'm fine doing an art of the frame where I basically never talk about what people are saying because it has taught me so much about visual storytelling.
Yeah.
And what it can do. Shout out to the text overlay for having Simon write inte in all caps for don't in all caps reply to Sarah. It always gets me. Also the amount of question marks and exclamation marks is a little iconic and so real for this dramatic ass situation.
Yeah.
Like that is an art of the frame situation because it's like, it's not like Omar chose what Simon was going to be the text overlay. Like this is all part of the production.
Yeah. I also think that like the enthusiasm's not the right word, but the energy he brings to his texting and then the like what we see on his face are such like contrasting.
Yeah. Like I feel like if he showed his emotion outwards, he would be well and truly freaking out.
Mm-hmm.
But because he does it, because his texts are so at odds with what he's feeling, you know that these feelings are still staying internal because he can't let them overtake his like body and physicality.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, exactly.
Another, feels weird to say this, amazing panic attack. One would expect nothing less at this point, but it's never a bad idea to highlight and be like, more like this in shows, please. Like, shoot panic attacks like this. Like, I'm not even sure I've seen many shows even depict panic attacks as much as Young Royals does. But if they do, use this as an example of how to do it right. All I'm going to say.
Mm-hmm.
A little correction from this particular Hillerska. Wilhelm's bodyguards, even though I'm in the Swedish, I literally translated, like, I feel like Malin says they won't follow him, but then they do.
Yeah, they do, because they're behind him when they walk across the bridge.
Yeah, I didn't even, like, because I knew that Malin said, oh no, I'm, like, terribly sorry. Like, sure, we won't follow you.
She says we're
like,
terribly sorry because they can't do that.
That's fair. I feel like the Swedish is saying, I thought something different, but like this could be just a problem with Google Translate, and like the captions are actually the one that's right for once, the English captions. But yeah, but like they literally just watch Felice and they follow him, and then watch Will and Felice have their cute convo, And they probably watch Maddie put ash on Villa's forehead, like if she does. We don't actually ever see that. But they just like watch the ritual. And anyways, it's like so funny and so sad.
Mm-hmm.
Like in more ways than one now, his life is not his own anymore.
Right.
More than it already wasn't. Like.
Mm-hmm. I do want to bring up how we once again only see this warm light when he's with friends. He can only find this, like, I don't know, to me it kind of portrays that he can only find this like grounded sense, or this like
the way I think using Simone's lighting in just now with just anything with friends, I think just shows how desperate he is for any sort of intimacy or affection.
Yep.
And especially now that like his last scene with Simone where they were actually talking to each other was in that clinical cold lighting, the way their scenes basically never have been.
Yeah.
I think that's maybe their first ever like scene of the two of them where where the lighting is that cold. Like the fact that warmth was now shifted to Felice. I think warrants the concern I've seen in some reactors recently that I've been watching of them like not realizing, like we feel like is the case, that like Felice is over for Wilhelm.
Mm-hmm.
And that Wille isn't actually pursuing Felice. That's just everyone's perception. But like it adds credence to that because the warmth has shifted to Felice. Like I've mentioned, like a lesser show would turn this into more of a love triangle than it deserves to be.
Mm-hmm.
But no, that's not what's happening. It's what everyone thinks is happening, which is smarter and way more original. I mean, even if it would get like Wilhelm pursuing bisexual attraction, it like, which like would it in itself be radical? It would cheapen the idea that Wilhelm might be bisexual by having him pursue someone else, his second cousin's girlfriend, so soon after breaking up with a guy he can't be with. That's just really just not good representation. I think.
Right.
Like it'd be messy, which in itself is sort of good. Like it's good representation to a point, but it's just like it's not the representation I want. Let's just say from my
we have enough bad. We have enough toxic
messy
representations of bisexuality.
Yeah,
particularly bisexual male like representations. Yeah. So like I don't know.
Yeah, and like it's one of those cases where it's like I've seen people call Nick from Heartstopper too sanitized a way of telling a bisexual story, but for me, in the idea of like, this is a tangent, but like in the idea of good representation means diverse representation of like all walks of life. Like Nick is the closest thing I've ever gotten to having my experience of bisexuality be put on screen.
Mm-hmm.
Like I figured out that I was probably like at least a little bit attracted to femme presenting people, even though I wouldn't have worded it like that, like first. And then came the attraction to guys because compulsory heterosexuality. Like anyway, like I don't like, as much as I appreciate Wille being unlabeled so much for the entire show, like I don't need Wilhelm and Felice to feel validated. Like, if anything, it would just make me mad.
Yeah.
Simon finding his dad passed out. Like, they keep you in suspense for the worst until we hear Micah snore.
Mm-hmm.
And I think for a split second, Simon thought he was dead.
Yeah. And
when he wasn't, Simon was angry at the fact that he was so scared that he was dead. Like, Simon was mad at himself for caring.
I would agree.
And then lashes out by calling him worthless drunk. Anyways,
there's no rest in this episode.
There really isn't. I mean, our only bit of rest is literally stolen from us and ruined forever.
Yep.
So, everyone knows what I'm talking about. I swear I don't want to talk about the scene, but I feel like I have to say that as far as uncomfortable sex scenes go, August and Felice is a pretty top tier one. I'll leave it at that. Hoping to keep some goodwill with Margaret, because I'm gonna have to bring it up for at least the next 2 weeks, so I'm pacing myself. Felice on the opposite end of the bus stand, and then her and Sarah coming together.
Mm-hmm.
It's very cute. It's very cute.
It is cute.
Just a tiny shout out, just like simple blocking that just like does a whole much of difference than if like she was sort of next to her and then came together. It's like it's the contrast that makes it work, and yeah. And then there's some art of the choice stuff happening there too, that I definitely want to talk about, but that's for next week.
Mm-hmm.
The held reveal as Felice goes back to her room of August also being in Felice's room. Like, you know from her face that he's there, but you don't know how bad it is until you see his face.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I don't know, like that way that choice in the editing, I like that series of shots. Appreciated.
Yeah.
It just keeps the emotion of that scene exactly what I feel like it needs to be, and it keeps like suspense alive for what really is just like a fairly bad argument between Felice and August, but like one that shouldn't feel as tense as it is, because they're not. August is like straight up yelling at her face pretty much,
Mm-hmm.
but Felice is calm enough that you shouldn't feel as tense as you do.
Right.
But the way it's shot and the way everything has been set up, you feel that Felice is anxious, but she doesn't want to make things worse in this moment by making that obvious.
Mm-hmm.
Even really to us, like it's really nowhere on her body language. It's just like you can feel it in the way she's being shot.
Yeah.
By the camera. Side note, moving on from that, not sure if I ever put together that August slips Villa the society key when he hands Malin Villa's jacket back.
Yeah.
Because we never see him do it, but
Mm-hmm.
that's the only way he could have gotten it, because it's in his jacket.
Yeah.
So a little bit more about Villa and Felice, the orchestration of like them being oblivious while being subtly overheard / watched by Felice's boyfriend, and then whatever, Simon and Wilhelm are to each other at this moment. Like that we talked about it so much last episode, we don't need to dwell on it, but it's like that all really comes down to the way it's shot, because there's, other than like they're just like random babble that was probably mostly improvised, I would imagine, between Nikita and Edvin. Like it's like we get everything that's happening in that scene just without the two people who really matter in that scene having dialogue.
Right.
Which comes down to the acting, but more than anything, like the way everything is set up and just like directed, it's really what I think really makes it. And gives it the extra edge.
And I do think I focused on August at this part in particular, but I think you could also say the same about Simon. Him watching it from the other room, he's like so close to seeing what's actually happening, which is friendship.
Yeah.
But he's just like so slightly removed from it.
And he's not looking directly at it. I feel like it's one of those things where it's like, if you look directly at it and saw both of their faces, he would realize, oh, I have nothing to worry about.
Mm-hmm.
But just hearing it, because I focus on like the hearing of it, which is part of why this which is why it's got down to the production, like it's down to Evan's performance, like that is part of it, but like the real thing of it is that we stay on Simon mostly in August, and we mostly are just hearing the tone of everything. And if you hear the tone of everything without the context of actually being able to fully see them, like we get a few shots of them just like being friends with each other, like it doesn't, like I said last time, it looks sus, like it looks bad.
Yeah.
Oh, actually no, it doesn't look bad, it sounds bad.
Yeah.
Which is a really interesting distinction.
Yeah. Because when you look at it, body language, strictly platonic.
Yeah. Like, and it's weird because it's like, I feel like very rarely do you get that sort of setup where what tricks you is how it sounds and not what it looks like.
Yeah.
Like, what it looks like is what it is.
Mm-hmm.
But without the context of their body language, tone is so easily misread.
Yeah.
like it's a less extreme version of like how tone gets misread over text. Like it's, if you just are hearing someone's voice and not seeing their face, they can trick you, or it can unintentionally as to how they're actually feeling. Little shout out in case I forget in Purple and Orange. I don't want this to be too much of a reach, but like, I hope it isn't. But Micah shoving Simon against the wall near his open closet is triggering to me personally, and I think it will never not feel charged.
Yeah, no, that's fair.
And like, it could just be my own baggage around closet symbolism because I have used it myself, that like I can't not think of it. Like I don't even know if I don't even know if like the word term coming out of the closet is ever used in this show, and so I don't even know how common it is in Sweden, like as a thing, or like as a phrase, or what their version of it is. But it's like, he doesn't shove him inside the closet, but like he comes close. And it's like, even if, again, it's intentional by everyone involved, like specifically like in world, like diegetically, even if it's intentional by Micah.
Yeah.
Like being shoved that close to a closet and like nearly shoved inside, like being 2 inches away from being shoved inside of it, at least partially, like I would fucking lose it.
Yeah.
And the fact that this is my father doing this to me. No.
Yeah.
Like we see that, like, yes, like Micah seems accepting of Simon's gayness, but like he also forgot about it.
Yep.
And he's forgetting about it in this moment too. And like, again, like even if it was intentional by the production and there was never that much thought put into it, I just want to acknowledge my own emotional reaction to that.
Yeah.
Wille taking out the key that he just finds in his jacket pocket after Alexander's like, you should have it. He's like, what? I don't. And then he's like, oh, I do. It's just iconic to me in the way I've never appreciated before, because it's really like, of course this is an August thing. Like, he knows who last had his jacket. And so this is his first confirmation that the society, as if like he couldn't have already figured that out. Like, he's confirmed in the moment before he even walks in, like, fuck, this is an August thing.
Yeah.
And like, I think he feels probably better about August than he has in a while in this episode, because like he feels probably a lot of solidarity with him in having both lost Eric, but it still is like, what am I getting myself into? Another gay watch detail, the second and final one for this episode, I believe, the wooden beam in the society room between Wille and Alexander on one side, and then the rest of the society, and then all the society members, all the current society members, because Wille isn't one yet, like on the other side, just that divide of like, he is entering a space that is of these society members and like of these people.
Yeah.
And there's a separation between them until there isn't. Until he's like formally accepts him, even though he's like laughs his way through it a little bit. Like, he still formally accepts to valiantly defend against the extinction of the noble families of Sweden.
Just so bizarre.
The word extinction. I don't even know if that's actually an accurate Swedish translation, but like, it's what the subtitles use, and it's so evocative to me. Like, they're an endangered species or something.
Right, like being rich is the same as being a endangered species here.
Yeah, it's like there are people who I think unfairly paint Young Royals as a show about the plight of being rich and wealthy and high class, but there are moments where I think that is not what the show is about, in the ways that it is very aware of its characters' privilege all the time.
Yeah.
And the ways in which, like, hey, we know who these people are. We're not stupid. We're not blind. We're not naive. Like, this is their own secret society. They just call the society to be unoriginal and overly dramatic all at once. Like,
Yeah.
and then that fucking weirdness is then you don't get a time to breathe because you get the craziness of, trigger warning, the casual drugs and alcohol usage scene.
Mm-hmm.
Like, it's so high energy and just such a bad idea, but you're just captivated by the horror of it.
Yeah.
Like, even if it's utterly ridiculous and is kind of shot as such, like, how could anyone think this is a good idea? You keep asking yourself, as it only gets worse and worse.
It
With,
really
like,
does.
With like fast cuts and like rapid overlapping dialogue, like it's so overwhelming. It's so much information at once.
It's overwhelming, but at the same time, it's very like, that's how I imagine it would feel to be that under the influence.
Yeah.
While
like
you're also like, in a lot of ways,
like
very under the influence of overwhelming emotion.
Like the fact that like you're like truly there.
Mm-hmm.
And you're in August's head a little bit, and you're in Villa's head, and you're never not in both of their heads at the same time.
Yeah.
Or at least there's a lot of switching back and forth. And I think it's so interesting. This is a Love Among Royals thing, I think, but like I just want to quick shout out like the ways this scene is shot highlights a power play that I think that's happening. Totally subtly and totally unconsciously between Wilhelm and August. Most notably, I think, in the interaction where August is like, we are all loyal to you, like to the royal family, but to you specifically. And then Wilhelm brushes aside and being like, let's move on, let's keep playing the game. And everyone laughs.
Mm-hmm.
And Wilhelm has control of the room in that moment.
Yeah.
Like, August is prefect, August is a leader, and just by virtue of who he is and not by any sort of really natural charismatic quality, because Wilhelm is kind of definitely not that. Like, he just has the room's attention and is they're on his side more than they're on August's side, even though they've known Wilhelm for like so little time and don't know him at all, really.
Yeah.
They just know who he is, like is capital I, like not his personality or
right.
anything about him as a person. Improvised drug trip. Like, going to be an art of the choice, but like, let's hear of the cinematography too.
Oh, absolutely.
Like the fact that all of these shots had to have been decided pretty much on the day, in relation to whatever the fuck Edwin was doing that day.
Yeah. And like what they chose to focus on and like zoom in on.
And then in the editing, like what they chose to keep, because I'm assuming with that much improvised footage, like they probably have had so much more than they have for most scenes to cut cut through. But then we get the soccer field reunion. Like all these little details stick out to me, like hearing the vibration of Simon's phone before we see him waking up in bed in the middle of the night, and then Simon, a profile of Simon just biking and like booking it down the street as voiceover plays of this improvised thing that we're definitely talking about next week. Like, and then as we've already mentioned, this Wilhelm POV shot of Simon coming towards him, just looking so worried for him.
Yeah.
And the thing that Wilhelm keeps repeating is "you came," and the thing that he keeps being surprised by is that like Simon came for him. But more than that, I think we see on Simon's face what that means. What is that, like, as mad as he is, what for most of that interaction on the soccer field, in that approach and in that POV shot, we as Wilhelm see someone who's worried about us.
Yeah.
Who actually cares and is concerned about Wilhelm as a person with a life that matters, and not as the crown prince has gotten himself in trouble, which is how like basically anyone else would view that scene.
Yeah.
What you type in?
I'm threading something.
Good. That's what I thought it was.
I figured out what the movie I was talking about was.
Oh, nice. Do you want to mention it?
I think it was Minority Report.
I've only ever heard of it.
It's a
Sci-fi something or other? Like
sci-fi X crime.
Sci-fi X crime, my favorite ship. No, not really not. Like that's actually probably one of my least favorite combinations of all stories. But and then finally, like to end out the saga, you'll see like Wilhelm and Simon getting smaller in the distance as Revolution stops being background music, and the song just gets louder,
and
it's just becomes the focus of the scene. Like fuck me.
Yeah.
Just fuck me, why don't you?
Yeah.
At this scene. Like, it would be a rough time being. Why am I going down this road? My brain just went there. I'm really losing the plot.
You don't have to go there.
Listen, I think I've implied enough. Then I can move on.
God damn.
Sorry. I sincerely apologize for that.
Ears every week.
To everyone. Again, what you get for podcasting with an owl person. Sorry.
I'm going to find another asexual and do my own podcast with them.
No. All right. The choice to have Simon not choose to sleep in Villa's other bed is something I potentially have never thought about till today when I was watching a reaction video.
Mm-hmm.
Like, we see that Wilhelm has 2 beds. Like, that's firmly established. And I've never apparently it's part of the fan discourse that I've never heard before, which is that, like, Simon decided to stay in Wilhelm's same bed and, like, sleep sitting up instead of going in the other bed.
Yeah.
And that just says so much. And, like, couldn't have been an acting choice, which is why it's going here.
Mm-hmm. I mean, a lot of that could be, like, if Wilhelm were to get sick overnight because he consumed a lot of drugs and a lot of alcohol.
Yeah.
I'm honestly shocked he didn't overdose.
Right.
I
don't doubt he came close.
Yeah. Oh, I don't
like
either.
I am surprised that, like, we don't see from this point on lasting brain damage.
Yeah. I sort of chuckled, but that's not funny. But yes.
No, it's not. Agree. But I think really it's only because he's 16.
Yeah.
But, like, even and then, like, that's meant that, like, it's either going to fuck you up more or fuck you up less because you're resilient, but you're also, like, moldable.
Still developing.
Exactly.
Yeah, but, you know, if he were to be getting sick, he wouldn't, you know, if you're dead asleep on the other side of the room, maybe you don't hear that. If you're sort of barely able to sleep sitting up, you definitely hear that.
Yeah, and then even if, like, you're in the same bed and then you can probably feel Wilhelm getting up if the bed vibrates even a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
Like, you can tell this bed has some pretty serious vibrations because when Wilhelm, like, just Simon starting to put on his shoes gets Wilhelm to wake up.
Yeah.
And it's Wilhelm who is hungover and, like, in more ways than one. So it's, like, clearly that bed, like, transfers vibrations pretty easy. Or, like, Wilhelm, like, was just coming out of sleep. But, you know what I mean. The intimacy coordinator for this episode won awards, right?
She should.
Like, I think she did, but if she didn't, it's a actual crime.
I mean, I don't know. I didn't know that there was intimacy coordinator awards.
I don't. Yeah, actually, now that I say that, it's such a new position. Like, it literally only existed as a formal position on set since 2017.
Yeah. So, like, I don't know, but if she didn't, she should retroactively.
Yes. We at People Don't Talk About Young Royals are giving you an honorary, like, at People Don't Talk About are giving you a honorary PDTA Intimacy Coordinator Award.
Yeah. You can put that on your resume. It'll mean a lot.
Because it's, like, something that I think needs to be made very clear every time we talk about an intimacy scene is that it's choreographed.
Mm-hmm.
This means that, like, these aren't just the actors just doing whatever. Like, this was thought out, and everything we see on screen is purposeful.
Yep.
Which means every intimacy scene is equally art of the choice and art of the frame.
Mm-hmm.
Which means that even though like the acting in this is like it's superb, but like it would mean nothing if you didn't have a very purposeful series of events that lead to Wille and Simon's first sexual scene.
Yes.
And then we have editing and story structure of cutting back and forth between August and Wilhelm.
Mm-hmm.
Kills me every time.
It does kill me.
These were notes that were written less than 10 minutes from when we started recording this episode, because Margaret and I were both kind of like so anxious that we did our notes super last minute. But I was even more last minute. Like I had like a half hour before we were set to record to write these, and I had way more emotions at this part than as people can probably hear than I thought I did. So I thought I'd gotten them all in Revolution, but that was stupid of me to think. Not to call myself stupid, but you know, it was silly. I lean towards silly sometimes now instead of stupid, because stupid feels mean to myself. Little aside. Anyways, but yeah, just the way that it cuts back and forth is just like what the like we talked about it. We did dwelled on it so much last time, but just like that was a choice made by so many people and committed to in a way that is just fucks me up a little.
Yeah.
And by a little, I mean a lot.
Yeah.
The zoom in on Simon that August does. Like, again, one of those things that is a choice of the character, but not a choice of the actor. So it fully has to go in this episode. Like, the way I've always interpreted it, or at least I interpreted it in This Week in Hillerska, is like, August needs to be sure that is who he's seeing, because he doesn't believe it.
Yeah.
Until he like zooms in on like Simon's face, and like he can't not know that right. is Simon.
Yeah. I do want to shout out something that is nicer about this scene than August. This is the first time of the episode since we lose the warmth that surrounds Simon and Wilhelm that it starts to come back.
Yeah.
And it's not back to what it was.
No, it's not.
But it is starting.
Yeah. Like cuz it's almost going to be dawn. So
right.
you're getting the little bit of the warmth coming back.
Right.
And it's really their first it's their first intimate scene that happens anywhere close to the day. Which Purple and Orange listeners know what's up. Like, we're edging out of them only existing in the night and in the darkness.
Yep.
And like them is capital T, of like their relationship only really existing in darkness.
Right.
And yeah, but basically then I was literally just like rapidly typing this off before I came downstairs to my basement to record. And so I'm like, yeah, August, that was fucked up. Now delete the fucking video.
On God. But then he doesn't.
But then also I felt weird about writing that was fucked up, because being partially in August's head, which is a very uncomfortable thing to be, like,
I don't recommend it.
That was fucked up can mean what I just did, but more importantly, I think it almost also means what I just saw.
Yeah.
Like the prince fucking a commoner is fucked up to August.
Yeah, I think that's the part that he thinks is fucked up.
Yeah. Not anything he just did.
Right. Not the taking a video of it, but it happening in August's head is what's wrong about that situation.
Yeah, the now crown prince is not who August thought he was, and his entire world has just been rocked.
Which I think speaks a lot to his moral code.
And just the amount of straight nonsense that really happens at Hillerska. Like, this is a privileged punishment discussion, if I've ever heard one, but like, my fucking God. Like, how can a queer person fuck a person up this much? Like, I know there's a lot of other factors going into it, but like, that feels like a big part of it. And then I just kind of wrote, despite how numb I was feeling and how anxious I was to be like, oh, I specifically about like I need to get down because my Margaret's already in the video chat, in the video call.
Google Meets was like, you're still alone. We're gonna shut this call down.
I was worried that was gonna happen. Okay. Rage and hurt and confusion and panic. Like, just, that's what I remember feeling and what I've always felt at the end of this. It's just, what's gonna happen? And also, what the fuck, August? And also, oh my god, no. And then also, like, just like, end me. This is so stressful.
Yeah.
I can't remember if this is our longest Art of the Frame ever.
It's certainly going to be longer than our Revolution, which we thought was going to be super long.
Yeah, but I think that's because of how chaotic this ended up being, which is like, I feel like I never think of Art of the Frame as being chaotic because it's usually fairly methodical. But I didn't have the time to bother even for, I like considered for a second, and I was like, no, I'm not doing timestamps for this one. We're just gonna vibes it. We're just gonna vibes it. It's just gonna be my thoughts, all the thoughts that I have, as much as it possible that I can get out in 30 minutes. And I still took an extra 10.
I was the one who was organized.
Which, Lord help us. That
was disrespectful. It was true, but it was rude.
Just in the sense of like, I'm used to being the one who tries to keep us on track because I feel a responsibility doing that as a person who has to edit whatever this turns out to be, and like etc. Like, I don't know.
I mean, we've many a time.
Sorry if that was sorry if I offended you, but I'm just like,
no, that's okay. It's true. We have many a time said that I fly by the seat of my pants, and you are actually driving a plane.
What does it usually say? Like, Anton is providing thoughtful analysis, while Margaret just has feelings.
I do have feelings. I have a lot of feelings.
But you also have analytical feelings. Don't discount that.
Thank you.
You have smart things to say. Many of them.
Thank you.
I wouldn't be able to do this without you. Truly, like this podcast is greater than the sum of its parts, and that's just fucking true.
I'm gonna cry.
Like, I care when one or both of us is in like an emotional place and like we feel like maybe I can't record today, but like, I not only care as your co-host or like the person I'm like, oh, I'm like worrying about our schedule, and that's really a background thing compared to like, I'm worried about my friend Margaret who is going through it. Not to put your emotions on blast on mic, I'm sorry, but
no, you can. It's okay. I'm going through a rough patch at the moment, everybody. I'll post a picture of my dog on our threads. Go check that out. She's 13. Yeah. She's having a hard time. I've been sleeping on my floor and giving her my mattress.
Also, it's a golden retriever, so anyone who knows dogs, you know.
It's a yellow lab.
Yellow lab, sorry.
It's okay. They're basically the same thing. One of them just has longer hair.
Yeah.
People will get at me for that, but it's true. I'll speak my truth.
Yellow, yeah. Margaret's had autumn for their entire life, so to get off their back.
Yeah, she's my baby.
Yeah. For context, 13 yellow lab. You do the math.
Yeah.
Sorry, I didn't mean to bring that up. It just kind of came out.
No, that's okay. I was going to at some point, anyways. Okay. I was going to post about it.
Okay, good. I don't want to feel like I was forcing that on you.
No, I was going to bring it up anyways. It's okay.
Cool. Is there anything more you have to say about this episode? Related to Art of the Frame?
I don't know.
I know. It's like, there's so much here that I honestly see, unless listeners generally feel like we did a good job, I don't think I'm going to feel satisfied with this episode unless we get like 0 floats related to it. Like, which is not fair to us, but like, I feel like our flop for this cycle might be long, even despite how thorough I feel like we're being. Like, there's so much here.
There is so much, and It's
But also so much of it that we can't, like, it's less than episode 3. Episode 3 was hard because, like, we had episode 4 so clearly on the brain that we couldn't bring it up.
yeah.
But, like, with episode 4, I have every episode of the show after this on the brain. So it feels inadequate to just talk about this episode.
Yeah. It is the change between recording episode 3 when we didn't know how season 3 was going to go to recording season 4.
No spoilers.
Recording episode
as much
4
as possible.
when we know how season 3 ends.
But everything's different.
It's odd. It's fucking with my head.
Yeah, everything's different now. That's what this because Hillerska was called. We meant that in so many ways.
Yeah.
And in ways that we're just still processing. Like, we're ready to be done. But I feel like we're ready to be back in the podcast. Like, we're so on our best behavior that, like, it's stupid.
Yeah.
Like, we have not been this prepared as podcasters since we started the show. Like, well, since we
started posting, we had months and months of episodes backlogged before that.
In case, I feel like we've said this before, but that when we released the trailer, we had all the way up through our first character assassination of August recorded. And so it's like, that's like 8 episodes. So it's like, we had a fair amount of episodes banked. And then we proceeded to be collectively terrible enough at planning recording that we ate through our entire banked amount of episodes in 8 weeks, pretty much.
Yeah. That was mostly my fault, to be fair.
You were starting a job that was very demanding of you, and I was basically starting a months-long panic attack about what I was gonna do with my life now that school is over.
Ain't that like being an adult?
Oh, God, I hate how much that's accurate because I didn't want it to be until I graduated. And I was like, what fucking now? I have never not been planning this much for my life.
Yeah.
Anyways. Do you want to just take us out? I feel like we can just kind of keep babbling, and that's not helpful for listeners.
Sure. Thank you for listening. If you'd like to keep up to date with when we release new episodes and other pod-related announcements, you can check out our Instagram or our threads at People Don't Talk About. Our next episode will be Art of the Choice for Season 1, Episode 4, so stay tuned. And with that, all that's left to say is, let's start a revolution, baby.